Rumor roundup time.
Yeehaw.
Mark Gurman is reporting that no money is changing hands between Apple and OpenAI for their integration into iOS 18. A quote from Mark Gurman: Apple believes pushing OpenAI's brand and technology to hundreds of millions of its devices is of equal or greater value than monetary payments. And I'm sure Eddie Q said that very succinctly to Sam Altman. That's my Mark Gurman did not say that part. I said that part. The expectation that Apple has here and that OpenAI have here is that it will cement OpenAI's leadership position in the industry, let more people see the benefits of the service, and then in turn push more people to sign up for a paid plan. More people know about it. If more people value it, maybe they'll sign up. If they sign up on the iPhone, Apple will get 30% of that, of course.
Yep. And
Apple,
keep in mind, like, why OpenAI? Why would you want to cement OpenAI's leadership position if you're Apple? Well, I mean, we're going to say in a second, they're going to open this to other things too, but OpenAI is not Google. And I think that Apple strategically is happier having OpenAI and, yes, Microsoft be stronger in this area because the alternative is vertically integrated Google, which means Android, which means it really puts the iPhone at a disadvantage. And if you're OpenAI, well, your biggest competitor owns one of the two platforms for phones, and that's the most important platform. So that's not great, right? Yep. So if you're OpenAI, Apple is also a logical partner. And so here we are.
Apple has been talking to Google and Anthropic. It's expected that Gemini will be an option later on in the year. I still believe that if they could have announced it, they would have. Because
totally.
They were very clear, right? Like outside of the keynote, Craig couldn't stop talking about Google Gemini. Everywhere he popped up, he was mentioning it.
We love it.
And I still stand by the fact that I think Google wants money for it, and Apple doesn't want to give it to them, as we can see from this. And then further from Mark Gurman, eventually, Apple aims to make money from AI by striking revenue-sharing agreements, whereby it gets a cut from AI partners that monetize results in chatbots on Apple's platforms. The company believes that AI could chip away at the billions of dollars it gets from its Google Search deal, because users will favor chatbots and other tools over search engines. Apple will need to craft new arrangements that make up for the shortfall.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be interesting because it's possible that will happen. But we don't know for sure, but it's a risk at Apple's search deal. And from Apple's perspective, Apple's got this great platform and it can point the fire hose at whoever it wants. And so the argument there is, if this is going to be valuable for your business, and I think that in the short run, maybe this stuff is so expensive that it's going to cost OpenAI, for example. But in the long run, if this is truly going to be a foundation for your business, then Apple choosing to have you be on its platform is a big win for you, because you're building your business, and Apple basically, you should pay Apple. And I think they're right? Like, you should pay Apple for the user base of Apple's platforms, right? Like that only makes sense in the long run if this is truly a foundation of your business. If it's not, then it's not. The way I phrased it in my piece about okay, fine, was just think about all the things that Apple did. The hottest company in tech, literally the hottest company in tech, OpenAI, just gave its crown jewels to Apple for free. Apple responded to that by introducing its integration as optional, turned off by default, and tagged with warning labels. To which I say, who has the upper hand here? Exactly. Because the whole idea was, Apple is going to have to beg OpenAI, and they're so behind, and it's so sad. And then when it comes, Apple's like, yeah, we got OpenAI. Sure we do. I mean, it's off by default. You can use it if you want, I guess. We'll put a warning label on it. Like, that was their attitude. It's just wild. Just absolutely wild.
Yeah, it's definitely different to the story that we thought it was, which was that they were going to be using OpenAI as the underpinnings of everything, which is very different to where it's been.
Very much not the case. Ben Thompson mentioned this, and you put it in our show notes, but this is the point, right? Which is Apple, as he said, Apple is positioning itself as an AI aggregator. This is the power of its platforms. He says the company owns users and, by extension, generative AI demand by virtue of owning its platforms, and is deepening its moat through Apple Intelligence, which only Apple can do, the on-device OS integrated. That demand, Ben writes, is then being brought to bear on suppliers who probably have to eat the cost of getting privileged access to Apple's user base. And this is what I was saying before. It's this idea that the reason Google pays for Google search on iPhones is that there's a whole lot of users who just use Safari on iPhones. And I mean, they use it on all of Apple's platforms. And Apple's user base is incredibly valuable. And you're like, you could say to yourself, well, why would Google give money to its competitor? It's like, it's its competitor on the phone space. But in terms of search, like, it is a great source. They wouldn't be spending that money if it was an enormous source of traffic. And so if you're an AI company, especially if you're competing with Google, but also if you're Google, you look at the Apple user base and say, wow, those are really valuable customers that, we want to reach and we don't want our competitors to reach. And if you're Apple, you say, well, yes, that's why you're going to pay us for access to our platform, because they're our users, not yours. And we can choose where they go, at least by default. And Ben's absolutely right. That means that Apple is aggregating the AI services. And it'll be really interesting to see how they all respond, because we are potentially in a very weird place right now where AI is more like an idea of the future, but it's not quite the future yet. And if AI turns into search engines, where it's essentially a huge monetizable blob, right? Where it turns out OpenAI and Google are just making money hand over fist on their AI stuff, then they should absolutely pay Apple for access. The problem is right now it's very expensive. They're probably losing money on every query. And so now is an awkward time for Apple to demand that ransom. But at least OpenAI ended up doing the math and saying, how about free? How about we just go in on free for now? And that's really interesting.
Although I don't like, as we're talking about this, I'm hearing some of the things that I don't like, which is Apple making the decisions again, right? And it feels like the App Store all over again, right? They are going to be the gatekeeper for access to their users, and Apple will then financially benefit as a company based on the decisions that they make.
Yeah, although what I would say is, if what we're hearing is true and Apple is going to integrate all the AI providers, right?
Yeah, but it won't be all, though.
Well, okay, many of the AI providers, let's say.
They will decide.
But just like the search engine, what they're getting paid for is probably being the default, which, again, the user can change, but a lot of them don't. But you're right, that is very similar to choosing the default of anything else, and then the EU coming in and saying, no, you need to be more explicit and offer up a whole bunch of different things. And there's some debate there. But I think it would be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But yes, this is Apple acting as a gatekeeper, but in a limited way. I think what would happen is, if I had an AI chatbot that Apple decided for whatever reason it refused to have as an option in its integration, I would have a real beef with them. But I think Apple could allow everybody in, and then also take a cut of the queries that go to all of them. And that may be the direction it's going. We'll see.